Hello, welcome to our webinar, Brave New World, a beginner's toolbox for English literature digital humanists. Can everyone hear us? You can let us know in the chat. Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to be talking about digital humanities and data information literacy. We'll start off by defining some key terms, then move on to showcasing some useful tools, and finally explore some existing digital humanities projects to whet your appetite. We're your hosts. I'm Shannon Howard.
And I'm Trinity Gilbert, both graduate students at the University of Michigan School of Information. Shannon will be starting off the webinar for us today.
Hi all. Before we get going, let's take a quick tour of the Blackboard Collaborate software. You should see the slides in a large panel to the right of your screen, and the chat box should be at the bottom left. We'll ask some interactive questions throughout the webinar through the hand-raising system. You can find that option under your name. It's the little hand inside the square box. Please chat your thoughts, responses, and ideas throughout the presentation. Go ahead and ask us your questions too. We'll answer what we can throughout the webinar and take questions at the end as well. Okay, great. Let's get started. So who here has heard of digital humanities? Go ahead and raise your hand if you have. Okay, great. It looks like most everyone has heard of digital humanities. So what do you think it means? Go ahead and write your own understanding of the concept in the chat, if you will. Okay. Well, I will go ahead and let you guys think of that. Oh, here we go. Okay, great. So I really like what Martha pointed out, which was that the digital humanities definition is elusive, and that's true. Digital humanities is a little tricky to define. So we've come across a couple of different definitions which we think might help us understand it a little better. So Elijah Meeks defines digital humanities as the use of computational methods and tools for the study of traditional humanities questions. And that's very similar to this quote by Kathleen Fitzpatrick, a digital humanities scholar. Basically, digital humanities involves using computing technologies to answer community-based questions. An even broader way to think about this is to see digital humanities as a gateway for data information literacy for patrons or librarians whose interests lie in the humanities and who may not realize that the word data applies to their own work. So right about now, you might be thinking to yourself, data, that sounds scary, or at least you might be feeling uncomfortable or just less than confident about computing data. But have no fear. We're here to help you out. The first step is to understand what data is, and then we can start to visualize it. When you hear data, you might think test tubes and numbers, but data can be a number of things, including text or artifacts, in addition to the more commonly thought of forms of processable information like numerical data. So when Jake Carlson, the U of M Research Data Services Manager, guest lectured for SI 623 on data information literacy, he went even further and said that data is anything you want it to be. So in the context of literature, data might be what you create as you research or write, and as you analyze text. This could be textual annotations, articles and papers in draft form, or that have been published, and anything in both physical and digital formats. So you're already creating data and encountering data. As librarians and information professionals, having an understanding of data is important because students and patrons are increasingly expected to be data information literate. Data information literacy is just what it sounds like. It's expanding the scope of information literacy to include data management and curation. One way that data is being managed is data visualization. This often involves using tools that combine, compile, and arrange data in a way that is easier to see and understand. We'll be showing you some tools that operate primarily in the realm of data visualization of textual data. So is everyone feeling more comfortable with digital humanities and data? Go ahead and raise your hands if you like. Okay, great. And remember, if you have any questions, just let us know. So for now, let's learn how to take data to the next step, making it digital. To do this, we're going to be looking at just a few of the many, many tools that can help you look at your data in new and exciting ways. But a quick note before we begin, feel free to go to Project Gutenberg and grab your favorite public domain work in its entirety or even just a chapter and start using some of these tools along with us in another window. Or you can just sit back and enjoy the show because we'll make everything available to you so you can play around with them later. Great. So the first tool we're looking at is Google Ngrams. This is one of the more straightforward tools for text analysis. Google Ngrams is making use of Google's huge array of digitized text to see how often a word appears within a corpus of books across a range of time. The data appears as a line graph and shows the percentage of a given word or phrase, called a gram, in comparison to all the other grams in the corpus. Google is pretty opaque about how this is generated, so we need to be cautious in creating arguments off of Ngram results. And if you'd like to hear more about this aspect of Ngrams, go ahead and contact us. Nevertheless, it's a great way to start visualizing data and get your feet wet with digital humanities. So when you pull up Ngrams, you're going to type some words or phrases into the search box. You'll see that the interface is very similar to most of Google's other applications. So grams can be 1 grams like Harry or bigrams like Harry Potter. You can also use an addition sign to create a Harry plus Potter gram. It gives you all of the occurrences of Harry, Potter, and Harry Potter for a slightly different result. Google has an instructions page for Ngrams that explains how to incorporate different types of grams into your search, including parts of speech and various conjugations that you can look at if you're interested in. That link is in the chat and it will also be on our resource handout. So once you've chosen your grams, the line graph appears and you can pop out a certain gram by clicking on its colored line. Or you can select a specific point to see the percentages of each gram for a given year. Great. So the next tool we're looking at uses a visualization technique called word tree. You can take any kind of unstructured text and create word trees, which pull out the most commonly used words and their context to see patterns or themes. They're arranged in a branching sort of way that kind of resembles a tree. The homepage of this site, the links are on the previous slide and in the chat, by the way, has preloaded samples of unstructured text, such as Alice in Wonderland or various speeches, that you can select to see an example of a word tree. Or you can take some of the text you copied earlier from our Project Gutenberg work and paste in the box below the samples. When you do this, what you'll get is a word tree. So the tool starts with the first word it encounters, giving you a word tree of the context of that word. You can then type other words into the text to see what kind of connections you find between words. Here's a visualization of the word happy in Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility. The larger font indicates more occurrences of that word throughout the text that connects to other words. These big words with lots of branches are following words, or symbols in the case of punctuation marks, that appear more than once. From here, you can shift-click onto other words to dig deeper into the text and explore the connections. You can also change the way that the word tree is presented. So you can click on reverse tree, which moves the selected words to the right instead of the left, allowing you to see the words that come before them rather than after. Or you can click on one phrase per line, which reduces the amount of context that you see. Here's a section from Alice in Wonderland. A really neat feature that this tool has is the option for a button saved in your favorites bar that allows you to turn any page in your browser into a word tree. This is convenient for analyzing text and data, and it's kind of just fun.
Hi, this is Tierney taking over to talk to you about a few more tools. So Voyant is a tool that makes it really easy to look at word frequency throughout a text or group of texts, both raw frequency and how the frequency evolves throughout. If you've ever worked with concordances, Voyant operates similarly. The advantage is that it allows you to create concordances of any work whose full text you have access to. We're working with Voyant's preset Shakespeare corpus. See the link in the chat if you want to play around with it yourself. Voyant is an exciting tool for comparing text and words across an entire corpus, i.e. a body of work, rather than a single work. In the upper left-hand corner, you have the text word cloud. The bigger the word, the more frequently occurring it is in the text. Hover over words for their number of occurrences. Voyant removes stop words like and or the. More on that later. Click any of these words in the bottom left-hand corner for more. With a corpus like this, Voyant will pull out frequent words, unique words, words with notable peaks in frequency, words appearing all across the corpus. By clicking on a word, like the word came here, you can chart its frequency across the corpus, so across Shakespeare's different plays, and you can even compare several words at once. Check out the relative frequencies of the words love and fear throughout Shakespeare's plays. The frequency is relative in that it's an average amount of occurrences per 10,000 words, rather than the raw frequencies, which would be a misleading comparison in works of different lengths. As you can see, there's a lot more love than fear going on in Romeo and Juliet, for example. This kind of graph is helpful for an overarching view of things, like making a comparison across text or charting an evolution. Save your results by clicking on the usual floppy disk symbol. Voyant gives you many format options to choose from: a static image, an HTML snippet to embed the data, or a URL to the tool and current data that you're working with. It's very handy and great for collaborating. You can also explore a single work. Try grabbing your favorite 19th century novel, for example, and see what you find, or put in some of your own writing and discover some of the numerical data behind your work. I'm working with Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre here. So what text do you think you would like to plug into Voyant? Answer in the chat, and let's see what you're interested in. And yes, as Shannon pointed out, these tools are all freely available. We only picked ones that were free and online for anyone to use. And that's also a big part of visual humanities, is open access and open source and that kind of open collaboration. All right, cool. I think we've got some responses. Tammy would like to check out War and Peace. I think that is a cool one. It would probably make a very big word cloud. I see Pride and Prejudice, Crime and Punishment. That would be another big word cloud. Pride and Prejudice would be cool. Discworld, that sounds awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. Terry Pratchett. All right, really cool. It seems like you guys have some ideas for what you'd like to plug in. Okay, so after uploading your own text, click the gear to edit stop words so that you get a more meaningful word cloud. Voyant will remove common words like the, and, you, to, and the like to give you words that might have more bearing on your analysis. Look at the difference between these two Jane Eyre word clouds, with stop words on the left and without on the right. So yeah, like we were saying earlier, Amanda in the chat, I wasn't sure if you could remove stop words in Wordtree, but you can in Voyant, and that gives you a more meaningful word cloud. You can do the same charting frequency as with a corpus of text. Check out mentions of eyes and hearts still in Jane Eyre. Click the summary box at left to make the words box pop up. From there, you can click the words checkboxes to create graphs. The section divisions here in the chart are artificial and created by Voyant, so you can enter text in chapter by chapter combining with corpus to chart word frequency across chapters. Let's check out one more tool, Juxtacommons. This online tool helps you compare text. It's useful for looking at different editions, drafts, collaborative works, and even different versions and revisions of a web page. So what you do is you upload two texts, prepare the raw source file, or more than two, I think actually. Prepare the raw source files as witnesses by moving them to the middle pane. This makes the files readable by the program. Finally, add the witnesses to a comparison set of your choice and collate them by clicking on the round blue arrow button. Then you're good to go for a visualization. It might be harder for you to use Juxtacommons right now while we're chatting because you do need to sign up for it, but it is, once again, free and very easy to sign up for, so you're welcome to go ahead and try it if you want. So you select your comparison set and compare the versions in the visualization pane. I'm working with two versions of Emily Dickinson's Home, original text and one that was heavily edited by her initial publisher. Follow the link in the comments if you'd like to check out my set for yourself, and you won't need to sign in for that, so you can, it's freely available for you to see. This is a very small comparison. Juxtacommons can handle much longer sets of text if that's what you'd like to compare. You can compare text one at a time. Changes will be highlighted in blue, and you can click them to see what the exact difference is, whether it's a change, an addition, or a subtraction. Here we can see that this dash has been removed. Note the red X in the corner in the edited version. You can also add annotations to help you keep track of your work and your findings. So, audience. Are there texts you think you'd like to compare using Juxtacommons? Maybe it's two editions of a written work, or maybe two drafts of a paper you wrote. Let us know in the chat what you're thinking of. I had some fun with Emily Dickinson because there are a lot of edited versions of her poems. So it's cool to compare the originals to the ones that have been edited. Ooh, different translations of the Odyssey. Trisha, that sounds really cool. And yeah, Amber, absolutely. This is a great tool for working collaboratively and doing version control. Oh, the Iliad too. Yeah, the Iliad and the Odyssey. That sounds awesome. Different versions of the Bible. That's cool too. Yeah, and comparing translations. So these are all really great ideas for ways to use juxtacommons. Sappho's poetry is another one. Awesome. It seems like you guys have all kinds of great ideas. That's cool. I can't wait to see what you do with the tool if you use it. So using juxtacommons, you can also compare text side by side. The tool highlights a change in a darker color across both versions. Juxtacommons compares changes right down to capitalization and punctuation marks, though you can turn both of those off by clicking on the gear-shaped blue settings button by effect. It's handy in this case, though, since both are characteristic of Dickinson's poetry and both were heavily edited in the original publication of her poems. So you've got the tools. Now see how others are putting their own visual humanities skills to work. Visual humanities is all about collaborating and making connections. Check out these projects and get some inspiration. These resources showcase other data information literacy competencies besides visualization, like proper metadata and data description. And you can use these collective resources as a starting point for your own visual humanities inquiries. Collaboration with others and across disciplines is a big part of visual humanities. These projects highlight the exciting results of collaboration over a common interest or idea. Oh, just a sec. I see there's a question in the chat about juxtacommons, so I'll move back to that for a second. Yes, Martha, juxtacommons does pay attention to punctuation, but that's a setting that you can turn off if you want it to be less sensitive. In the case of the Emily Dickinson poetry, paying attention to those dashes and the question marks and stuff was useful, but it's not necessarily helpful in all text comparisons. All right, so anyway, back to projects and resources. The collaboration is a big part of visual humanities, so we're going to show you some projects and resources that showcase collaboration across different disciplines and across different subject matters. So Digital Scriptorium is an image database of medieval and Renaissance manuscripts that unites resources from many different institutions and many different countries. The images are available in high resolution, which makes them ideal for exploration. The database is easily searchable, and as the images are all well tagged and categorized, it makes it easy to look for what you want. Though this database is more suitable for searching when you know what you're already looking for than for browsing. Here's a section from a mid-16th century manuscript of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. Though the full text is not available through Digital Scriptorium, images like this one highlight the value of primary sources. A basic text digitization won't necessarily take into account illustrations and marginalia. And here we've got a late 14th century Italian manuscript of a text called De Macrocosmo. This webinar is focused more on text and on images. Try and think of some ways you could bring images like these into your work for a truly multimedia approach. Scholars are still thinking about different ways to represent the full range of a text or object in digital media. And here's another project, Digital Thoreau. It's both a digital resource and an online community dedicated to reading Thoreau's works in ways that take advantage of technology to illuminate them. You can explore their visualization of Walden across its different revisions and editions. The visualization is powered by the versioning machine, which is an antecedent to juxtacommons, which we just showed you. With the reader's Thoreau, you can also participate in small group discussions of his work right in the digital margins of his text. Pretty cool. Here's the visualization of Walden, offering a comparison of, from left to right, the 1847 version, which is the earliest version, the 1852 version, and the definitive Princeton edition used as a baseline. I'm comparing 3 versions here, so you can compare anywhere from 2 to all 8. When you click on a chunk of text, it becomes bold in all versions if it appears in all versions, so you can easily track it across versions and follow the editing process. Here you can see the section that originally began the chapter Where I Lived and What I Lived For is now the 8th section in the later versions. It's exciting to chart the evolution of a text like this. The Modernist Journal Project, our final resource that we'll be showing you today, makes available digitized versions of modernist periodicals in English from the early 20th century. You can search the database and also explore author biographies and essays around the journal's contents, as well as sections of books and articles. We also have a section on teaching and research using the resource. Their Cover to Cover initiative is asking users to check their library's holdings for full runs of the magazines with advertising intact, so as to collect and disseminate these locations. Library copies of such journals were often stripped of their covers and advertising, which is a loss for scholars today. This ties in with what we were saying earlier about not everything being easily capturable in digitization and preservation. This is something to consider when working with your own data. Are you capturing it in full? The Modernist Journal project raises some interesting questions. The project also does some of its own data exploration, similar to what we were looking at before with our tools. It has a lab, a place to experiment with some of the data generated by the project. There are things like a superimposed timeline of all the various journals at bottom right, or this sunburst visualization of the contents of the magazine Others, top right. Check it out to see some more ways to visualize humanities data. I'd like to end with a question for you. Do you know of any other digital humanities resources or projects that you find interesting? Or what would your ideal project look like? Tell us in the chat. We'd love to hear what your ideas are. Amanda's asking if you heard about Folger's Shakespeare digitization project. I don't think I have, but I'd love to hear more about that. And everyone else, what are some ideal projects that you can think of? What would your ideal, what kind of data would you like to visualize in what you've been reading or in what you've been writing? Apologies if my replies to what you say in the chat are kind of slow. I think there's a bit of a lag. Martha talked about mapping projects, such as authors' hometowns or settings of books. That's a really cool idea, Martha. That's not something we talked about too much because we didn't find very many tools focusing on that. But a lot of data visualization and digital humanities was focused on mapping physical locations of authors or of works. Okay, great. So the Folger Shakespeare digitization project involves digitizing more of Shakespeare's plays and making them available online. Thanks for alerting us to that, Amanda. That sounds really cool. Amber says she did a project on Moby Dick as an undergrad and she would have enjoyed some of these tools. I agree, Amber. I wish I had known about these tools when I was working on the papers and my thesis in undergrad. I think that would have been really cool. And Kate also would have enjoyed using these tools in her thesis on the Greek goddess Hera. And so yeah, these tools are really a cool way to chart how things evolve across text or across time and see their occurrences. Amy says word trees are really beautiful visually and she wishes she had known about them. Wishes she had known about them in art school. Amy, I agree. I just think they look so cool. And it's great. I love that you can reverse the word tree to make it go backwards or forwards. Oh, and Audrey's talking about references over time to see how mythological figures change in representation. That's another really cool idea. Great. Well, thank you so much, all. Those are some really awesome ideas. And it's exciting to see that these tools and resources have gotten your creative juices flowing. So congratulations. You now have the skills and knowledge to go out and start playing with your literary data. Take ownership of your data and start looking at it in new ways. And then think about how you can take your thinking and visualizing even deeper through collaboration and connections across works and across disciplines. You can follow these links if you'd like to learn more about any of the tools we showcased. This will also be available on our handout, which we'll distribute once the webinar is over. If you want to learn more, check out some of the further readings on our handout or contact us via email. We're happy to answer any questions or just to chat with you about how awesome digital humanities and data information literacy are. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed learning some new skills and ideas in the realms of digital humanities and data information literacy. There's a link to our survey in the chat box, and we'll email out a link as well. Please fill it out for us when you get the chance. If you have any more questions, ask them in the chat, and we can answer them now together. Well, thank you, Tammy. Very sweet of you. Oh, thank you, Tammy. Very sweet of you.
Well, thanks, Kate. I'm glad you guys enjoyed this.
Well, thanks, Kate. I'm glad
Do
you guys
have any
enjoyed
questions? Oh, thanks, Tricia.
Does anyone have any questions? Oh, thanks, Tricia.
Amy asked which Batman was that?
Creative Commons Batman.
Amy, I found it on Flickr.
You found it on Flickr. Yeah.
Well, thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate your participation and just for being here.
All right. So Amanda's asking any other ideas about where to put that on visual.
Oh, Amanda's asking any other ideas about where to put that on visual information. Amanda, that's an awesome question, and I'm so glad you asked that. We've actually got some links in our further reading
places to get more
on our
information.
the places to get more information.
Digital humanities is not super official.
Digital humanities.
I mean, there's lots of good senses for official, but there aren't
Field, I mean, there's lots of
a lot of people work with things that aren't necessarily informal across law and consider
informal
law of the research on our
some of the resources on our further reading list will give you some of that information.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Great.
Bye. Great.